Hey guys! So if you didn't already notice, I am missing an eyebrow here. So what I want to do today is walk you through a really quick and easy brow tutorial. One thing that makes a really big difference on my face, with or without the rest of my face makeup, is brows. Because my skin is so fair and my brows naturally are very light and pretty thin, it's like night and day when I have brows and when I don't have brows. It really brings out the definition in my face, and if it's the one thing that I have to do to get out of the house and I have no other makeup, it's my brows. So before we start out, I'm going to zoom you guys in a lot closer, stepping outside of my comfort zone here, because my brows have always been one of the things that I was most self-conscious about because I just never really had any. So bear with me, but I'm going to go and zoom you guys in closer and I'll be right back. Okay, so there are two reasons why I did one brow off camera before coming on here. One is I want you guys to see the shape of one as I'm working on this one. And two, if you have a brow that is not so good compared to the other brow, it's a lot easier to do the good brow first and then move on to the one that is not so good. It gives you something to follow along with as you're doing the bad one, and it also gives you a little more practice before you move on to this one. So normally when I start with the bad one, both of them look bad. It's just a mess. But if I start with the better one and move on to the bad one, then they usually both come out pretty good. So I guess let's get started. So for everyday brows, I don't do anything particularly fancy. All I like is I use a mirror that has a regular side and a magnifying side. And I like a pencil for every day because it looks a lot more natural than using like a dip brow or a powder for me. I can't even find a powder that looks the right color. So let's not go there. So what I like to do first is brush up the hairs from my brow just to kind of get them going in the direction that I want. And then I go in with the pencil end and very lightly trace the outline of my brow. I do not draw in like crazy weird brows. I try to keep them as natural as possible and just follow the natural curve of my own brows. So I'm going to try to do this on camera without like having the mirror up in my face, but what I do is I start underneath the brow first and trace there, especially with this one because this brow is just the worst. If you do use a heavier hand, it's okay, but I try to go as light as possible so there's less blending that I have to do later. And I go out towards the middle of my forehead with the liner a little bit more because I do have a lot of baby hairs there and it's probably not really easy to see, but I want to also get those involved in the whole process. So we're going to go out a little bit and then very lightly trace the line underneath my brows. Cool. So we've got that. Now, before we do any more blending, I'm going to do the very top too, so I know where my boundaries are. That's what this whole thing is for. You want to set boundaries for yourself so you're not overdrawing anything super crazy, because when you overdraw with the pencil, and if you have oily skin, it's not going to stay. I'm sorry. So start at the top, stick to the natural shape of the brow all the way to the arch. and then come straight down. Okay, see? We're getting there. Not so bad. Do the same thing underneath for the tail of your brow, just like you did on the top, and just trace that natural shape. So basically what we're doing is creating an outline where all we do next is color by numbers. So now that you have the outline, all you need to do is start drawing little lines in the direction that your brow hairs naturally grow. So for me, this brow grows every which way. There is no single direction. So for this one, I try to go in the direction where most of the hairs grow, which is this way. But occasionally you might see me do something weird, and that's because the hair grows in strange directions only on this brow. Just work your way through the brow, go to the front of the brow and do it, but very, very lightly. Okay, so you've pretty much got your brow all filled in at this point. Now what you want to do is take the spoolie end and start feathering out the lines that we drew at the beginning. Because if you're not careful, or if you did it with a heavier hand, you're going to have an outline on your brow all day. So take the spoolie end, and I take just the very, very tip of it, and I start upside down like this. So this is the tip of the pencil, and this is the spoolie, and I go straight up with it because I don't want the color outside of those boundaries that I drew. I want the color up and into the rest of the brow. And as you're doing this, just be very gentle, take your time. It's not a race. Don't try to rush through it, because when I do that in the mornings, I usually end up with some crazy, strange looking brow. So just take your time. Now for the lines that we drew at the top of the brow, you're going to feather it down. Don't feather it up. We don't want to go there. We're going to feather it down into the brow very lightly. And especially for me, it's important to feather it really well around the arch, because that's where I have the least amount of hair. It's getting better. But if I don't do that, it looks bald. It's so bad. Okay, so now at this point, we don't have any more outlines. They're all feathered in the brow. So all you want to do now is just kind of fill in the gaps that are still left over from what you did earlier. So right here, where my arch is, especially underneath the bottom of the arch, is where I have the least amount of brow hair. So I tend to have to go back over that and just very lightly make little brow strokes and fill in some of that hair that's missing. Okay, so if you're happy with it, you're pretty much done. It's really simple. There's nothing crazy about it. The only thing I suggest is, if you've got a crazy brow like this one, doing those guidelines at the beginning helps out so much. Otherwise, you're just kind of going in blind, and you can get any shape out of this. And because, like I said, I do have a crazy brow and the hair kind of grows every which way, I use a brow gel to set it. So I usually stick to a clear one. This is the Maybelline Great Lash Clear Brow Mascara. And all I do is basically do like you would with the spoolie before you do your brows. So brush them up and in the direction that you want them to stay. And this works really well, like I said, if you have really crazy brows like I do, where you've got some hair that grows straight up and then to the side. This really keeps it going the direction that you want, rather than the direction that it feels like going today. Another thing that the brow gel really helps with, especially if it's clear, is if you went too heavy at the very beginning or the front of your brow, the gel really helps to disperse that color if you need to. In this case, I don't think I did quite so bad, but I just really want to show you how well it does with, if you just kind of went a little overboard and had a little too much fun there at the front of the brow. On an unrelated note, I have a cat that is snoring on my foot down here. And I don't know if you can hear him, but I can. He's loud. Okay guys, so that's it for today's little tutorial. I told you it was super easy. There's nothing crazy that I do differently. I use 2 products in the morning when I do my brows and that's it. So hopefully this helped you out a little bit. And if you have any more questions or any other ideas or tips or tricks, don't forget to leave a comment down below and let me know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to give this a big thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe down below. And I will see you guys in my next video.